All right. Hey guys, we're going to do the lunar cycle today. Hopefully this one won't take too long. We just have to go through the phases. All right, essential questions here. We're going to talk about why does the moon look different every night? And then can you make predictions about the moon's appearance? So, some vocab here. The lunar cycle itself is the change in the appearance of the moon as it makes a full revolution around the Earth. So we talked about rotation and revolution of the Earth going around the sun, but the moon is also doing the same thing. So the moon is doing this around the Earth instead, though. So the moon is making an orbit around the Earth. It follows its own path, and as it does that, it looks different to us here on Earth. So that's the lunar cycle. So the very first phase that we talk about when we talk about all of the phases of the moon is the new moon. So we have over here in this picture, grab my mouse here. So this view, this diagram is really helpful in understanding what's going on here. So we have right here is the new moon. So within our whole lunar cycle, we have 8 different phases, and it goes through those same phases every single time it makes a revolution around the Earth. So if we look at this, we have to look at this kind of 2 ways. And to make sense of it, we have to think about it in both ways. So we have our Earth here, right in the middle, the circle, right? That's our Earth. The sun isn't actually a circle on this. Instead, the sun is just shown as sunlight coming in from this direction. Okay, so it's if the sun is facing this way, but it could be anywhere in Earth's orbit around the sun. So this inside diagram, it's got the little circles, is showing what it looks like from space. So if we were looking down at this whole system from space, we would be seeing these circles in every one of these places because the sunlight is coming in from over here. So where it's bright white is where the sunlight is hitting it. So that's where it's lit. Where it's dark, and in these circles as well, is where there's shadow, where it can't wrap around it. So here, for our Earth, our sunlight is hitting it. This side of the Earth would be in daytime because the sunlight is lighting it up. And then over here on this side, it's dark. It's nighttime because it can't wrap all the way around it. So the same goes for our moons in all of these different positions. So sunlight can only hit the side of the moon that is facing the sun. So in each one of these places, the sunlight is hitting on this half of the moon. But to us, we're seeing different parts of the lighted side of the moon. So it actually looks to us like these on the outside. So again, the little one is what it looks like top down in outer space. The big one is what it looks like to us as if we were looking at the half of the moon that's facing us. And we'll do a diagram in class that'll make more sense of this as well. So this outside one is what it looks like to us. So the new moon looks like this to us. It's completely dark. The moon is in a position where it's in between the Earth and the sun. So we look at this one, and as you can see, if we're looking top down, remember on the whole system, the sunlight is hitting the side of the moon that's facing away from us. So we only see the dark half of the moon because it's in shadow. So we have this visible to us, which is pretty much nothing. Sometimes you can see a faint outline of it, but it's usually just darkness. So that's called the new moon. And then we move into the next phase, which is the waxing crescent. So as the moon makes its orbit around the Earth, eventually it gets to this point after a couple of days, and instead of seeing that entire dark side of the moon, we see just a majority of the dark side of the moon. And I'm putting my mouse right here, trying to show you guys the half that we would be able to see if we were sitting right here on Earth. We would see this half of the moon. So we see mostly darkness, mostly shadow, and just a sliver of light. So that's called a waxing crescent. So the lighted part is starting to increase at this point. That's what waxing means. Waxing means the light is increasing. So the light on the right is new and bright. Hopefully that can help you to remember it. Think about the shape of a crescent roll. So if you guys have ever eaten those, that's kind of the shape of what it looks like. Or a croissant. That's how you say it in French. So as it's making its revolution, that's just changing what we can see. And then after that, continues in its revolution around the Earth. A couple days later, we get to first quarter. The first quarter is literally 1/4 of the way through the cycle. From the Earth, it appears to be half lit on the right side. So as it goes through here, remember, we're seeing the half that's facing Earth. So we see half of that darkness and half of the light. So it looks like that to us. So it's half lit on the right for first quarter. And then as we go a couple of days further, we get to waxing gibbous. So remember, waxing means the light is still growing. So we're still in that part of the phases where the light is growing. So from the Earth, the moon appears to be more than half lit on the right side. So the light is kind of shaped like a football. It's got that curve to it. It's almost like it's a sliver of darkness now. Instead, they've kind of switched places from the crescent to the gibbous. Because as it's revolved around over here, now we're able to see a bigger portion of that lighted side and just a sliver of the darkness. So remember, this is what it looks like from space. This is what it looks like to us. And then finally we get over to the full moon, which is one that we're all pretty familiar with. So the full moon is actually only halfway through the cycle. So from the Earth, it appears that the moon is fully lit. And the Earth is actually in between the moon and the sun. So it's weird for us to think about that that's when it would be completely lit. But the sunlight is actually completely hitting the entire side of the moon that we can see because that side of the moon is what's facing the sun. So right here, this whole half is what we see if we were sitting on Earth. So that's what it looks like to us. It looks completely lit. In reality, it's only half lit, but it's because we're looking at the entire half that's lit. So it looks completely round and bright to us. And it doesn't the Earth doesn't block any light because the moon is actually slightly above the Earth. So it's not completely in line with each other. All right, skip that. I meant to skip that, sorry. We move to the waning gibbous over here. So waning now means that the light is shrinking. So waxing, light's growing. Waning, light's shrinking. From the Earth, the moon appears to be more than half lit on the left. So we go from that completely bright to now the light is starting to decrease here. So now we've gotten to this point in the revolution where now we see majority of it is lit on that half. Just a little bit of it is in shadow. So again, it's a gibbous because we're mostly lit, but now it's waning because the light is starting to shrink in this side. Third or last quarter, you'll see either one of those interchangeably. The moon's 3/4 of the way through, so it's the third quarter. So from the Earth, it looks like that it's half lit, but now it's on the left side because now it's over here. So we're looking at it, just this half. So now just this part is lit and this part is dark. So this is what it looks like to us as we're standing here on Earth looking up at the sky. And then the waning crescent is the last one until we start over. So again, waning means the light is shrinking, but now it's a crescent again, so it's just a sliver of light. The lighted part is seen decreasing on the left side, and it's crescent shaped like a crescent roll. So here we're looking at it, and it's just lit a little bit on the left side if we were looking at it from Earth. So that's what it looks like. So it's really just trying to remember this inner portion here. It's always going to look the same, the lit portion and the dark portion, because the sunlight's always coming from one direction. But what it looks like to us is what's changing. So that's, again, what's on the outside. So, can you describe why the moon changes shape and predict the phases of the moon? And eventually, we're going to be labeling a blank lunar cycle diagram. So don't worry, we'll do plenty of activities to understand this, but hopefully this helps you guys a little bit and you took quality notes. I'll see you in class.